Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with two comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. How you doing today? That was kind of abrupt, just kind of went, hello. So, how you guys doing? It is Tuesday, January 11th? Sure, we'll go with the 11th.
It's the 11th.
Why, thank you, Kyle. Hey, Kyle, while you're here, what exactly is the Experience Expo 2022?
That's what I'm working on while you're talking about Star Wars. So last year when we launched the Experience, we launched with the EXP Expo, which was a 3-day virtual convention that we had here on the Experience. We had a ton of great names. We had John Romita Jr. and Scott Hanna and Jim Starlin, and I got to talk to Howard Chaykin about matzo ball soup, which was a weird thing for me, but I loved it. So it's this great virtual event. We're doing another one again this year. We're going to do it every year. And this year, instead of being 3 days, it's 10 days.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, 10 whole days. Because I'm a sadist.
It does appear to be.
No, so we're going to start this coming weekend. We've got some great creators lined up that we'll be announcing perhaps tonight on Dan and I's show at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. If not tonight, tomorrow on with Dan here, if I can give me some time. But this weekend is going to be indie centric. We're going to have some people over the next week, and then next weekend we're aiming to have some big panel discussions and some interviews. I'm working on a panel with a bunch of publishers, including some people from Bad Idea, and maybe Nick from Dynamite and some folks from Aftershock and some great publishers. But panels on how to do Kickstarters, panels on how to do, what publishing looks like, panels on, protecting your own intellectual property, all that kind of stuff next weekend. So trying to give everybody that full Comic-Con feel, but doing it over 10 days so I don't die.
Well, yeah, we don't want you to die. I mean, JD...
You're the one saying it out loud.
JD could take over a lot of the producing stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's more of we don't really want you to die,
Right. No, it's good. I can make one guest announcement, but I can't tell you when they're going to be on because we're still talking.
Okay.
Fabrice Spolatsky.
Yeah, the creator of Spider-Man Noir.
Co-creator of Spider-Man Noir, right?
Intertwined.
Intertwined. He worked on a book that just is being re-released in February. It was supposed to be out last week, but it's coming out in February, called One Hit Wonder, that I love.
He was managing editor for Humanoids for a little while.
Yes. We have him, and we also have Don Wen of Pablo the Gorilla.
Cool.
Yeah, so... those are two that I can for sure announce. We have more confirmed, but spoilers.
Yeah. Oh, very cool.
Right. Should I give my hot take on who Black Kristan is while we're...
Yes, please.
Okay, so I want everybody out there who's listening to think about this. Black Kristan is what would happen if I existed in the Star Wars universe.
I can kind of see that.
Well, it's remarkably similar to a character I created and played in a 2-year-long Dungeons and Dragons campaign set in the Star Wars universe. So,
Yep. Now, I've got the full history of the character. I got it worked out, who created him, where he came from, where he's going. But,
right.
yeah.
Dan's is real. Mine is just me being a jackass.
Yeah. The only problem with the Book of Boba Fett so far?
Not enough Wookiees?
I don't have any hot toys to go for the series.
I know where I can get you one. Just PayPal me the dough.
We'll talk.
All right.
I am addicted to hot toys, and I've got plenty of the Marvel ones. I only have one Star Wars one, and that is the deluxe Mandalorian with Baby Yoda or Grogu, which I guess I could put him up, Mandalorian, but I don't have a Wookiee. I don't have Boba Fett, and I need to get Hot Toys to sponsor the show because, they're always in the show. Having them send over figures. Yeah. And I actually did some unboxings for them for a while. They sent me a few figures back in the past. So, all right, folks, let's get into it. Kyle, thanks for explaining the upcoming expo. I got to tell you, I'm a little thrown off because right before the show started, I discovered that there is a football player coming out of college, coming out of Auburn, that may have one of the best football names ever. Well, maybe not one of the best football names, just a really great name. And the guy's name, he's a safety out of Auburn, and his name is Smoke Monday. Hingo McCrickleberry, yeah, that's good. But no, Smoke Monday. First thing, to name your kid Smoke is just, you're expecting special things from the kid. You're putting a level of pressure on him, but you're expecting special things from the kid. But to be named Smoke Monday, it sounds like you're saying you are going to work all weekend and you can smoke on Monday because that's when you'll be done. And for a football player who plays on the weekends, that kind of works. Unless you play Monday Night Football, which then smoke them on Monday for a safety sounds even better. So, Smoke Monday, great football name. I'm a fan of great football names. The Panthers used to have a quarterback named Captain Munnerlyn. Naming your kid Captain, great. There was a kid named Sir Parker, was on the Bengals. One of my favorite names, and that's just from a personal thing, was a running back named Tamunga Biaka Batuka, which I thought was great. So
don't make me mute you by talking about Biaka Batuka.
Tamunga Biaka Batuka? Oh, that's right. You're from Ohio.
Yeah. But Ohio State has a linebacker right now who maybe, I don't know if he's going to the draft this year or next year. Steel Chambers.
Good name.
That's a good name.
Football. Better name for porn.
Well, I was thinking for a alter ego for someone like the Punisher.
There you go. Yeah. By the way, the reason Kyle cringes at the name Tamunga Biaka Batuka is that back in the late 90s, he was on the Michigan Wolverines, and Michigan and the Ohio State Buckeyes, which is Kyle's team, have this long-running rivalry. And Biaka Batuka, in their game that year, basically accounted for 500-plus all-purpose yards, and Michigan just annihilated Ohio State that year.
As much as I hate him, it's one of the greatest single football performances ever turned in by any single player.
Yep.
Like, it's Michael Jordan with the flu in the playoffs kind of level. Just, okay, just sit back and take it kind of situation. So
you sit back and watch in amazement. Like, this hurts.
But also, you can't smoke in the NFL. Just ask Josh Gordon.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So, all right.
Yeah. So
I'll let you-
Bianca Batuka beat Ohio State. And what's funny is I used to have a coworker that we would bet on the Ohio State-Michigan game. And that game happened. Well, my girlfriend at the time, who would become my wife and now my ex-wife, worked at the place as well, was his assistant, and sat directly in front of him. So I immediately went when the Panthers signed him, which is my football team anyway. I'm a Carolina Panther fan. When the Panthers drafted Bianca Batuka the next year, I immediately went out and bought a Bianca Batuka jersey, and Debbie would wear it on Casual Friday, sitting right in front of him every Friday with that name splayed across the back of the jersey. Also, whenever I would call, when he would be on a job site and I would call and leave a message, I always left it as Tamunga Bianca Batuka, which meant, yes, I know how to spell it. But and one of my favorite things from him ever is his friends called him Tim. And some of the sportscasters went up to him and said, "When we're calling the game, can we call you Tim?" And he goes, "No. You know, if you're announcing my name, please use Tamunga Bianca Batuka." So I just like that. Those poor sportscasters. Okay, that's enough about football. But Smoke Monday, I have a feeling that's going to be just a great football name. I don't know if he's any good or not, but with a name like that, he supposedly has a really high rating coming out of Auburn as well. So, all right, let's get into our main thing today. If you guys were watching the Book of Boba Fett on, well, we should probably run a spoiler thing just in case anybody hasn't seen it yet. So, Kyle, can we? All right. So there's a moment in the Book of Boba Fett that the whole second episode is basically split between current day and the past. About 4 years is what I'm thinking, because right now we're around about 9 ABY, and ABY is after the Battle of Yavin. Battle of Yavin is Star Wars, is A New Hope. It's the destruction of the first Death Star. That is the Battle of Yavin. That is the 0 point of everything. That is the 0 point of what's before and what's after. That's how they tell time in Star Wars. And we are currently at 9 ABY after the Battle of Yavin. Jabba and Return of the Jedi, Jabba's death and Return of the Jedi is roughly 4 ABY. So it's been about 5 years. That means him coming out of the Sarlacc pit and all the time he's spending with the Tusken Raiders, that's about 4 or 5 ABY. And the Mandalorian started around 8 ABY. So that's been about a year. So that's your timeline. Well, while we're in 9 ABY, while we're in the modern day of the story, there is a confrontation between Boba and Fennec and Jabba's cousins, the twins, a pair of Hutts or Hutties. Hutties is the language, Hutts, who are laying claim to Jabba's old territory, the same area that Boba lays claim to, having taken out Boba's major domo. What is his name? Bib Fortuna. Yes. So having killed Bib Fortuna, Boba has a claim to the land, but Jabba's cousins are claiming it as well. Well, in their show of strength, as they're going back and forth, and Boba is standing his ground, the muscle for the Hutts show up. And it's a well, I was going to say a giant, but I think all Wookiees are big. So it's kind of hard to say giant compared to other Wookiees. A black-furred Wookiee with a scar over his eye appears. Doesn't say anything. It's obvious Boba knows who this is. He refers to him as a gladiator, and we're going to get into that. But it's one of those incredible moments. Yes, thank you, Jeff. Bib Fortuna. It's one of those incredible moments that the character doesn't need to say anything. He's just there and it clicks. It really works. Just his presence, his appearance. And this was the big surprise of the episode, because had it just been a Wookiee, the casual viewers would have just looked at it and went, oh, he's the same race as Chewbacca, but obviously he's got black fur, he's got a scar, he's wearing different, so it's obviously not Chewbacca. But, we recognize that it's a Wookiee. And you can pick up pretty easily that Boba and he and Boba Fett have a history. Now, if you're a reader of the comics, this was huge. This was an appearance of a character that has been making a big splash in the franchise since Marvel started making the comics again. The character's name is Black Chrysanthemum. Now, he's got a couple nicknames. There's a character named Dr. Aphra who's named him some nicknames. She calls him either BK, Black K, or Santi. I don't think I could look at a creature that big and call him Santi. But whatever. He first appeared in the first issue of the new Darth Vader comic that came out in February of 2015. So now I think this is, this was Marvel's big thing. They launched it, a Darth Vader comic. It had Kieran Gillian was the writer, Salvador LaRocca was the artist, and they're the ones credited for creating this character. Now, he would continue in the series for quite a while. He would also pop up in the main Star Wars comic and also in the Dr. Aphra series. So if you're looking for this character, it's pretty easy to find. There's some Darth Vader trades out there, which I've picked up and read so far, and that's where I came across the character. The Dr. Aphra comics are really popular, and he shows up there a lot. He even gets a mention. He's not in, but he gets a mention in the recent War of the Bounty Hunters event because he's a bounty hunter. Now, if you're curious who's inside the costume, because a lot of us are, Peter Mayhew became huge for being, Chewbacca. Well, this guy's name is Kerry Jones, and he's not necessarily an actor. He's done some roles, but normally in costume. But his main thing is he is a special effects and makeup designer. Now, he has worked in that capacity on shows like The Walking Dead, Lovecraft Country, Watchmen, Preacher, Legion, and even True Detective, and a bunch more. That's not limiting it. That's just some of the ones that are kind of in a similar genre. He's also been involved in films The New Mutants, Suicide Squad, and Sin City: A Dame to Kill For. But as an actor, he has done roles in Teen Wolf, The Orville, Creepshow, and then now here. So, Kerry Jones, that's the guy in the suit. Now, let's move on from the behind the scenes and let's talk about the character's actual history. Now, to start with, Black Chrysanthemum was exiled from the Wookiee homeworld of Kashyyyk. And again, if you want to spell Kashyyyk, just like Chrysanthemum, you see Chrysanthemum at the bottom there with a couple extra R's? Kashyyyk is the same way. It's K-A-S-H, then 3 Y's and a K. So, now, while it isn't specific what he did, there's never gone into what got him exiled. There isn't really that many things to get you exiled from the Wookiee society. And the one thing that does that we know about is being labeled a mad claw. Now, what a mad claw is, it's a term that the Wookiees use to mark a dishonored member of their community. Now, the race places a high value on using their claws for peaceful purposes only. They do not use them as weapons. That's how they see themselves, as more than an animal. You know, they have claws, but they use them only for peaceful things. They don't use them as weapons. And any Wookiee that uses those claws that way, if they attack another living being with their claws, they're considered feral and thus labeled Mad Claw and cast out of their society. Now, we come across that term having to do with, I think it's from a video game. There's a character named Darth Revan, and there's a Wookiee involved in that story. And Zalaban, I think it is. I'm a little fuzzy on this part, but that's the first time we actually hear about a Mad Claw. And that's what happened to this character. And I think they borrowed it, something like that, for here. Now, they've never come out and said that he's a Mad Claw. But again, there aren't a lot of things that get you outcast from the Wookiee society. All right. So let's get specifically into BK's particular history. Now, I should probably check. Okay, time-wise, we're doing good. We're doing very good. All right. So, BK's, once he got ousted, you got to get yourself off the planet, is the thing, is that you're basically exiled from the society, but you're still on the planet of Kashyyyk, so he's got to get off. And what he wants to do is he wants to basically become a pit fighter because he wants to be a better fighter. And he hears about this pair called the Zonti brothers, X-O-N-T-I, Zonti. And the Zonti brothers are known for using slavers to acquire new fighters. So most of their pit fighters are fighting against their will. Now, BK figures out, okay, I got to get with one of these slavers to get them to take me to the Zonti brothers. So he starts attacking the various slavers that are coming to Kashyyyk, because capturing Wookiees are a big thing. They're used often in pit fighting. They're used for other things. So he keeps attacking them and trying to find a group of slavers that work for the Zonti brothers. And he finally comes across a group of Trandoshan slavers. Now, if you're not familiar with Trandoshans, I talk about them a lot because I love the Trandoshan culture. It's kind of the Klingons of the Star Wars world. The Trandoshans are Bosk, the bounty hunter Bosk from Empire Strikes Back. He's a Trandoshan. Basically, their god is called the Scorekeeper. She's a goddess. And the more you kill, the more you please the Scorekeeper. That's their whole thing. They're mortal enemies of the Wookiees. And they will kill and skin Wookiees and sell their pelts. If you saw in the first episode of Book of Boba Fett, the head of the Trandoshans on Tatooine shows up and offers him a Wookiee pelt as tribute. So, just to show you, that's what's going on there. Now, he attacks these Trandoshans, who are not easy to kill, and wipes out all but one, named Noka. Now, Noka goes, yeah, I work, when he finally questions him, I work for the Zonti brothers. And now I'm assuming that we haven't heard him speak, but I get the idea that he speaks Wookiee the same as Chewbacca does, so it has to be translated. But he, the Trandoshan understands enough, whatever, that he agrees to take him back to the Zonti brothers, because otherwise he's going to get killed. Now, the brothers, when they arrive, and he's walking off of these, Noka's walking these captured slaves off of the ship, and then suddenly this big black furred Wookiee comes walking out and isn't in cuffs. They're like, what's up with that one? Why is he not in cuffs? And it's like, oh, he's a volunteer, which blows the Zonti brothers' minds. Now, They test him in the ring. He does great. He's a great pit fighter, but they want to make him better. They want to really make him valuable for them to sell. That's the idea, is that they create these pit fighters and they sell them. These and another term for it is the gladiators. They call them gladiators, and that's why Boba refers to him as a gladiator, because Boba's aware of Black Chrysanthemum's background. But what they decide to do to make him a little special is they have his knuckles filled with metal, basically giving him a permanent set of knuckle dusters, or brass knuckles. Now, what they don't do is give him any anesthesia or ask him permission. They just do this to him, and it causes him a lot of pain. Now, there's something else in the Wookiee culture called a life debt. Now, a life debt isn't necessarily good or bad. I believe Chewie feels he has a life debt with Han because Han saved his life. A life debt basically is a swearing that somebody has affected your life in a certain way, and you will, in return, affect their life in similar kind. So, with Han saving Chewie, Chewie felt like at one point he needed to save Han. That's where their bond comes from. It's a life debt. Well, causing so much pain to Black Chrysanthemum, he swears a life debt that one day he will affect the Zonti brothers in the same way. So he's not saying he's going to kill them, but he's going to make them hurt. So that's kind of the plan. So now he is then put into this final training bout, and he goes up against an opponent. It's a Downton, and he, with these knuckle dusters, he's able to take the guy out with a single punch. Great. He and then the Downton were then set against a Trandoshan, a Nikto, and a Hawk. And while potential buyers all watched to see what's going to happen, well, Chrysanthemum dropped his blades immediately. He didn't even want to use a weapon. And he just started punching this Trandoshan and then ripped his head off in the battle. He tosses the body into the Nikto to distract him before grabbing the Hawk and tossing him into a fire. He then goes back to the Nikto, grabbing him by the throat and forcing him to pay tribute to him before snapping his neck. Needless to say, the bidding for Chrysanthemum was quite high. And he became kind of the heavyweight champion of pit fighters, of gladiators at this point. So you get the idea. Now, so this is kind of his background, why he's referred to as a gladiator. And what happens next becomes a little fuzzy, because there really isn't a clear shift to how he goes from being a gladiator to a bounty hunter. But that's what happens next, is that he does this shift. So at some point he changes careers, but they haven't really covered that story yet. But now we're going to talk about him as a bounty hunter when we come back from our break. So let's go ahead and go to break, and we'll be right back. They get surprised, Kyle.
Imagine being at a convention. They say it, and it's true, that everything is getting faster, you're not getting any younger, and time is the single resource that you can never get back or get any more of. So why walk into your local comic shop blind when you can go in laser focused on the best books on the shelf?
Hi everybody, and welcome to Minute to Skim It. Yeah!
Spend 1 hour with Miss Jen and Bean, and they'll give you rapid-fire reviews of all the new comics hitting stores. Spend less time shopping and more time reading.
This is Provenance of Secrets.
This is The Heathens. I read Wolverine number 17.
Minute to Skim It, every Tuesday at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
everybody. Welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show. We are talking about the Wookiee Bounty Hunter Extraordinaire Black Chrysanthemum. But before we jump back into that, let me remind you, we got some great shows coming up today on the Experience here. Following this show, we've got Black Comic Universe, hosted by Amani Latif. Then there'll be Minute to Skim It with Miss Jen and her crew, doing quick scans over the newest books coming out this week. And then at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern, Kyle and I will be back for in-stores this week. And we've got some really cool books we're talking about this week. We got a boat ton of books, so we'll be moving through them pretty quickly, but check in, see what we think about them, and let us help you pick your shopping list for this week. Also, before we move back into the character study, I want to remind you about my Kickstarter that's going on right now. We just do this quickly. It is Karma. It's an erotic graphic novel about a straight-lace advertising photographer that gets pulled into the sensual and exotic world of an up-and-coming supermodel named Karma. It is going strong on Kickstarter. We blasted through the opening goal within a half hour, and it's going strong. We are quickly approaching our second stretch goal. We've already reached our first, so we're coming up close to our second stretch goal. I'm expecting we'll probably hit that sometime tonight because it's getting close, maybe in the morning. But check it out. Hopefully Kyle can throw up the link in the chat. And the book covers are some of the big things on it. We've got the Stepan Sejic cover right there. We also have the Mirka Andolfo cover, which is really cool. Mirka, who's doing Sweet Paprika, Stepan Sejic that does Sunstone and fine print, and then Michael D. Pascal is the other cover, and there's a regular cover and a naughty version of his cover. All four covers are available through the Kickstarter, and we're also doing some special limited edition trading cards. And then I'm actually working on something that might involve. The story comes from my 20 plus years of as a photographer, and we're talking about maybe doing some special prints involving some of my better photos as well. So these stretch goals are coming up. We're looking to blast through, and there's already little rumors talking about maybe doing a sequel if this keeps going as well as it is. So the link is over there in the chat. So please check it out. Hopefully you'll want to be part of this. It's been a fun ride. It's been a fun ride so far, and I'm hoping it continues. So thank you guys. I'm trying to move that bottle out of the camp. There we go. All right, let's get back into Black Chrysanthemum. All right. So last we said he was learning how to be a better fighter and gladiator in the pits, having gotten away from the Zonti brothers, but still feeling he owes them a life debt for everything that came onto them. Now, he goes from being a gladiator to a bounty hunter, which hasn't really been shown, but about 10 BBY, which is before the Battle of Yavin. So again, Star Wars A New Hope, blowing up the Death Star, that's the Battle of Yavin. 10 years prior to that, he is working for Jabba the Hutt on the planet of Tatooine. Now, this is a time where Jabba decides to make a little extra money. He's going to place a water tax on all the moisture farmers, and you know how important water is on Tatooine. But someone attacks his tax collectors, and he decides to send Chrysanthemum out to take care of the problem, find out why his guys got attacked, and remedy it. Well, he went to the nearest moisture farm and took the owner and started torturing him. Well, it turns out that farm happened to be one we're very familiar with, and the moisture farmer he takes hostage is Owen Lars, Luke Skywalker's uncle. Well, you start torturing Owen, and there is this guy who's kind of keeping an eye on the Lars residence. Yes, Ben Kenobi or Obi-Wan Kenobi, whichever he's going by at that point. We haven't seen. I think it's Ben at that point. He, of course, shows up to. He's originally the one that took out the tax collectors, and he shows up to save Owen, and he and Black Chrysanthemum end up in a fight. Now, Kenobi tries to give Chrysanthemum a chance to leave. And the Wookiee, he doesn't care. He's a Jedi. He just attacks. Well, the two fight with Chrysanthemum trying to kill Kenobi, while the Jedi is really focused on just saving Lars. Now, BK ends up getting a lightsaber across the left eye, temporarily blinding him, and that's the scar you see over his eye. So that scar that he's got is from Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, he continues trying to kill Kenobi using his bowcaster, that big rifle. Now, he doesn't have a bow. It's interesting, they don't have a bowcaster in Book of Boba Fett. And I'm wondering if they thought that would be too much like Chewbacca, that they feel like, well, let's just give him a different rifle. That's possible, because the bowcaster, I think, is the normal rifle for a Wookiee, and that's what he has in the comics. But he's just got a normal rifle in, well, I don't know what a normal rifle is in Star Wars, but he has a non-bowcaster in the Book of Boba Fett. So we'll have to see what happens there. But now, he eventually falls, or was pushed, he might have been force pushed, over the side of a cliff. Now, he lives, but he's basically failed. Now, knowing that Jabba isn't very forgiving of failures, Chrysanthemum decides to leave the planet for a while. Again, we're not really sure what happens. There's still a lot of his backstory that's a little sketchy. We can just kind of pop in and out. And some of it might be one writer not really knowing what the other writers are doing, or like, well, he left the planet in disgrace from Jabba. Well, yeah, but I really want him here. So what happens next is a decade later, he's back in Jabba's good graces. And this is just after the Battle of Yavin. And Darth Vader has gone to Jabba to negotiate supplies on behalf of the Galactic Empire. But he uses the moment for a personal mission or two. And he basically asks Jabba to provide two of his best bounty hunters. Jabba gives him Black Chrysanthemum and Boba Fett. So it's obvious that Boba does have history because they've met before. Now, Fett was given a very specific job, and we're not going to follow it too much, but Fett was told to find the young rebel pilot that was able to blow up the Death Star. Because at that point, Darth Vader has no idea who it was. He knows that he uses the Force, but doesn't know anything else about it. So he sets Boba Fett off to discover who it is. Now, on the other hand, the Wookiee is sent to find and capture an agent for Palpatine, for the Emperor. Now, the agent's name is Silo 4. And the Emperor basically is using this guy for something, and he won't tell Vader what it is. And Vader's not very trusting. So that's why he wants to find out what's going on. He wants to know what Silo is doing for the Emperor. So he sends Chrysanthemum after him, and the big Wookiee discovers that Silo was moving illegal alien parts to a secret base in the Outer Rim. But before he could find out which planet, he ends up, he can't figure out which planet, so he ends up capturing Silo and takes him back to Vader, who we then are introduced to a new... He's kind of a protocol droid, 000 or 000 as he's called, except he's got a little extra programming. And basically that extra programming is he knows how to torture. He's a torture droid. So think of C-3PO, but with a mat on for torturing people, like the dentist in Marathon Man. That's 000. Well, he ends up, getting the information he wants. Now, after his contract with Vader is up, Chrysanthemum was then summoned to a cantina on the planet of Suntul. Now, while waiting for the person who summoned him, he doesn't know who summoned him, but he's been summoned out there. BK has some time to kill, so he notices that the cantina is having pit fighting with a bunch of captured Wookiees. They're fighting each other to the death for the entertainment of the patrons. Well, Chrysanthemum decides he wants to be part of this. He wants to go in, maybe blow off some steam. So he strangles one of the contestants, takes his place, and then goes in and beats his opponent to death. If you haven't picked up on this yet, Black Chrysanthemum is not a nice guy. He's a very violent Wookiee. You know the thing about Wookiees who rip people's arms off or lose when they lose at the space chess? I think it's Black Chrysanthemum. I think that's who they're talking about. Anyway, so he does this opponent. He kills the guy. He comes out. And then he discovers that there's other bounty hunters there too who had also been summoned. And the other bounty hunters are Bosk, the Trandoshan, somebody named Bebox, and IG-90, which is a later version of IG-88 that we know from Empire Strikes Back, or IG-11 from the Mandalorian series. Now, and then they learn that who summoned them is this rogue archaeologist named Dr. Aphra. Now, she's been described as kind of the Indiana Jones of the Star Wars universe. She doesn't necessarily have a good or evil allegiance. She is very for herself, but she does these, adventures, and she's becoming a very popular character. So don't be surprised if she shows up in live action very soon. But she's pulled these bounty hunters together because she has this plan for a heist. Now, the Empire had just taken down a syndicate named the Suntul Pride, and all the money, the fortune that this syndicate had put together is now being transported to the Imperial vaults. Now, she claims to have an inside information on how to find the transport, get by the guards, and get away. And she offers the bounty hunters a cut of it if they help with the heist. It's pretty straightforward heist. Now, the transport was found near the planet of Anthon Prime. And while things were going according to plan, somehow the hull gets breached, and the majority of the credits that they're after get sucked out into space. Now, some of them don't, and the bounty hunters collect the leftover that they were able to salvage, and they split it, and kind of accept that, okay, this is what we got. It's not what we wanted, and they go their separate ways, except the whole breach was actually part of the plan, and that Aphra and Chrysanthemum had actually worked out this side deal. And Chrysanthemum, who had been the pilot for the heist, uses his ship to collect the credits that got sent off into space. So where the big amount that they took, they got the majority of it and ended up splitting a very small part with the other bounty hunters. So it was a double cross. Now, the two then go together to Anthon 13, where they deliver the credits to Lord Vader. This is all part of a Darth Vader plan. And in exchange for the information, or in exchange for the credits, they get information on the whereabouts of the Zonti brothers. That's right, because Chrysanthemum is still after his, paying his life debt. Now, like I said, it's pretty interesting characters. A lot of details in the comics. Now, before anything else happens, Chrysanthemum would next show up in the Star Wars main series, and he's trying to capture Luke Skywalker. He ends up using his ship by ramming it into the Millennium Falcon and forcing them to land on a planet called Vrogas Vas. Now, once on the ground, Chrysanthemum attacked a weakened Chewbacca. He had recently been poisoned by 000, that torturing protocol droid. Now, while the two were probably equal matches at their best, the fact that Chewie is weakened allows Chrysanthemum to kind of get the better of him. And once he takes out Chewie, he then starts on Han Solo. Well, 3PO decides to step in. As soon as he steps in, Chrysanthemum doesn't know what's going on. He takes a swing at the droid, and his metal knuckle busters go right into the circuitry and end up electrocuting or shocking Black Chrysanthemum into unconsciousness. So 3PO becomes a punching bag and ends up taking out the Wookiee. Kind of interesting. Now, this attack ends as the rebels get away, and R2 gives Chewie the antidote, and they just leave Chrysanthemum. That's pretty much the side adventure he gets. He gets into the Star Wars book. But later, he and several bounty hunters are hired by Vader to find Dr. Aphra because she's gone missing, and he wants her back dead or alive. Now, Chrysanthemum, along with 000 and another droid named BT-1, they go to a place called the Cosmetanic Steps to retrieve Aphra. Now, he then takes her back to Vader, and Vader just got his flagship, the Executor. Vader decides Aphra isn't really worth being an ally anymore. She's more, a pain than help, and he tosses her out an airlock. Well, Chrysanthemum kind of knew something bad was going to happen, so he rescues her from the vacuum of space, and he does this because she still owes him money, and she's still supposed to help him find the Zonti brothers. Now, he would stay with her through a few more adventures until he was able to actually capture the brothers at long last. Now, he would return, and we don't exactly know what he does to the brothers, but it does appear that he does pay off the life debt. He would return, though, and help foil a plot against the Emperor by a rogue Imperial named Patina Mar Mas Vor. They do love their names in Star Wars, don't they? Now, he continued to work with her after the Battle of Hoth, Empire Strikes Back, even though she had escaped Vader's service again. So she was kind of a solo at this point, and Chrysanthemum was still working with her. But there does come to a point where she has got a 20,000 credit bounty on her head by a group called the Tag Corporation. And he decides to collect on it and turns her in. Well, she would escape, though, so no hard feelings. This, of course, all leads us to 9ABY, where Jabba the Hutt has been dead 5 years, and both Boba Fett and Jabba's cousins, the twins, lay claim to be the next daimyo of Tatooine. Now, the twins are accompanied by Black Chrysanthemum, who appears to be acting as their muscle. While the twins decided to defer the impending fight for the area until later, there doesn't appear to be any love lost between the two bounty hunters. Boba does acknowledge knowing Chrysanthemum, referring to the Wookiee as a gladiator, and there's a nod to his days back in the fighting pits. But what I'm looking at here is this is an older Boba Fett. He's not in his best shape. He's not really at his best. He's got Fennec with him, but Black Chrysanthemum is kind of a badass. I don't know if he could one-on-one, if Boba Fett could one-on-one take Black Chrysanthemum. And I even don't know if with Fennec's help they could take him. So I'm curious, and my thought is that there's a good chance we're going to get others of the old bounty hunters in this, because when you introduce Boba Fett, they introduced Dengar, Forlom, Zuckuss, IG-88, and Boss. Those all the bounty hunters at the same time. So it would make a lot of sense if they brought in at least one or two of them. How great would it be to have him and Boss working together against Black Chrysanthemum? But also, how much are they going to use this character? Because he is from the comics. So he doesn't have any live action lineage. His entire live action or even animated, he doesn't even have any animated history. His entire history is comic books or that minute that he's on screen in Book of Boba Fett. So they could do just about anything with him. But I think he's an interesting character that they could do a lot with. So I'm hoping that they're going to use him in a way that keeps him around. You know, maybe he turns on the twins. Maybe Boba expected. I mean, Boba does seem to have a plan. Maybe he expected the twins to show up and has already made a deal with Black Chrysanthemum. Maybe he brings in Bosk to help take down the Wookiee. I mean, I don't want to. I think there's a lot of possibilities. I don't have any clear-cut direction I think they're going, but he's a fascinating character, and hopefully we'll get to see more of him when the episode drops tonight/tomorrow morning. You know, we've spent a lot of time with the Tusken Raiders, and I think we're getting to the end of the flashbacks, or at least through most of them. So hopefully we'll get a lot more of the modern day story in the next episode, in which case I'm hoping we get more of Black Chrysanthemum, because like I said, this is a fascinating character. And I think whether you know him from the comics or not, when he walked on the screen, when he showed up, that got a lot of people's attention. You know, if there isn't a hot toy already in production for this guy, there should be. So, and then Hot Toys should send it to me immediately so I can have it here on the show. But I think that they're going to do, I'm hoping they're going to do something with this character that's more than just a throwaway. He's not just the hired muscle. In a lot of ways, the twins aren't exactly big bad material. They're the evil, maniacal machination guys. They're not the ones to actually do the fighting. So the big showdown would have to be between them and their muscle, and that would be Black Chrysanthemum. Or if they bring in somebody else, don't know. But we're still 5 episodes to go here. But it's going to be interesting. Plus, from a filming point of view, you've got a guy in armor and a helmet versus a guy in a giant furry costume. You can shoot anything you want with that. You can put any kind of stunt person you want in those suits and do incredible fight scenes, and you don't have to worry about them looking like a certain way. So I think there's a lot of great potential in there, but we won't know until tonight. So tomorrow morning, we will come back on Thursday and talk about the next episode. Tomorrow, I'm going to change things up a little bit. I want to talk more about Karma, give you some of the background and stuff, how it came about, some of the story. But I didn't want to just be here talking about it. The best way to do that is an interview. Well, I have asked Paul Story, the gentleman who does Pop Go the Writers with me on Sundays. He's going to come on tomorrow, and he is going to interview me. So it's going to be a little juxtaposition tomorrow. Paul is going to interview me about Karma, and it's kind of carte blanche. He asked if I wanted to give him questions to ask. I'm like, no, I want you to ask the questions. So Paul and I have known each other for a very long time. So there's a good chance he may throw some zingers at me. So tune in tomorrow and hear me get interviewed. Kind of an interesting twist. Also, remember that tonight, along with the Book of Boba Fett, is going to be the premiere on Disney Plus of The Eternals. So if you haven't seen The Eternals and you have Disney Plus, you can finally see it. We believe that there's going to be some extra scenes. Now, they're starting to come out online, some deleted scenes. There's a whole scene I saw of Dane Whitman and Sprite talking in a museum. I also saw one of Makari and Sprite talking. So we know of 2 scenes. There's supposedly 17 minutes of added footage that over in the UK got rated. So hopefully, maybe they've added them directly into the movie, or maybe it's in the special in the extra section. But you'll want to check that out. So if you haven't seen the Eternals, you'll be able to see it on Disney Plus starting tomorrow. If you have seen it, take a look for extra footage, either in the movie itself or in the extras section. That's it for me, folks. Stick around for Amani Latif with Black Comic Universe, followed by Minute to Skim It with Miss Jen and her crew. And then Kyle and I will be back for In Stores this week at 5 p.m. Eastern. No, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow.